Every guitarist aspires to be like Joe Satriani, yet he never needed a guitar. Within the instrumental rock community, Satriani is a living legend. With such skill and passion, he uses the strings to weave stories that a single solo may bring people to tears. One of the first instrumental albums to reach the top of the Billboard charts was his record Surfing with the Alien. It opened the door for a musical genre that was previously regarded as non-commercial. A musician like Satriani who doesn't sing, but nonetheless attracts a lot of attention, is difficult to find. He has 15 Grammy nominations and more than 10 million records sold. Additionally, he has tutored guitar legends like Kirk Hammett and Steve Vai, whose names have altered the trajectory of contemporary guitar history. Beneath Satriani's exquisite artwork, however, lies a different realm in which he lives in seclusion from controversy and clamor and has spent his whole life striving for perfection. He has opted to remain out of the spotlight, concentrating solely on his instrument and inner voice, while others attempt to get fame through tricks. Despite receiving little attention from the media, he has served as an influence to several generations of musicians. Why did Joe Satriani make the least amount of noise among rock icons? For the rest of your life, should you solely listen to music? First steps. On July 15, 1956, Joe Satriani was born in Westbury, New York. He was raised in a working-class Italian-American household. Out of 5 children, Joe was the youngest. He was raised in a culturally diverse household where the arts were prized but not widely distributed. His father was an engineer. His mother loved to paint and was a homemaker. They both encouraged their children to be artistic, despite the fact that neither of them pursued music as a career. Although the house was silent, it nurtured a soul that would subsequently share a strong emotional bond. Joe experimented with playing the drums, trumpet, and even piano before a dreadful afternoon in September 1970, but none of these instruments held up for very long. When 14-year-old Joe learned about Jimi Hendrix's passing, he froze. At the time, he was a waste at football practice, telling the coach, "I'm quitting football. I'm going to play guitar." May have looked like a normal teen action to many, but Joe felt a powerful calling that he couldn't ignore. In a subsequent interview, he stated, "I don't know why, but that moment changed my life." Most children learn to play the guitar from books, but Joe trained himself by listening to the records of artists like Frank Zappa, Jeff Beck, and Eric Clapton, and learning why they played the way they did rather than merely copying their licks. Joe discovered a flourishing music scene after his family relocated to Long Island, and he began performing in his basement with friends. Music wasn't a name back then. It served as a means of escape from an excessively noisy and chaotic world. In order to further his studies in theory and composition and to earn money as a guitar instructor, he relocated to Berkeley, California, after beginning his music education at Five Towns College in 1974. He had no idea that one of his earliest students, Steve Vai, would go on to become one of the greatest guitarists of all time. Vai would later claim that during those early difficult years, Joe served as a mentor, an inspiration, and a technological lighthouse for him. Joe Satriani didn't pursue fame as a musician. He responded to an unnerving inner voice. From an early age, his parents warned him, perhaps sounds would have to say everything if words weren't effective. Joe Satriani, who was just starting out in his career, didn't bring much with him when he relocated to California in the middle of the 1970s. All he had was a guitar, a passion for music, and a firm conviction that, given enough time and care, sound could speak for itself. He began earning money by teaching guitar. He first had a small number of local students, but when word got out, he quickly attracted a large number. You must be quite serious if you want to keep up with this guitarist. More than simply notes and playing techniques were taught by Satriani, because he taught them about philosophy, expressiveness, emotion, and how to transform a solo into a story. Fate quickly appeared. One of his earliest pupils was Steve Vai. Vai always referred to Joe as his mentor and went on to become one of the greatest guitarists in the world. Vai, Kirk Hammett, Metallica, Alex Skolnick, Testament, Larry Land, Primus, and others have subtly adopted Satriani as their guitar hero. Joe didn't release his debut album, Not of This Earth, until 1984, despite the fact that he hadn't released any formal albums himself. On a very limited budget, he created it, paid for it, and released it. Despite its lack of significance, it caught the interest of underground guitar enthusiasts and critics. In a peculiar way, his music made sense. It was profoundly emotional without coming across as overly sentimental, and it was technically stunning without being ostentatious. A casual listener would find it captivating, but a trained ear would find it difficult to understand. Everything changed with the release of Surfing with the Alien in 1987. The album's cover art of Marvel's Silver Surfer and its choice of incredibly compelling instrumental tracks made it a global hit. For a long time, people believed that instrumental rock was not suited for the corporate world. A whole generation swiftly adopted songs like Satch Boogie, Circles, Always With Me, and Always With You as guitar lessons. Joe Satriani didn't emerge from the shadows due to any radio success or media attention. He just came out because he thought there would always be a market for sincere, well-written songs. It was the first time the world truly heard the voice of a musician who had never had to sing. A significant setback in your professional progress. The 1987 release of Surfing with the Alien marked a sea change for instrumental rock in general, as well as for Joe Satriani. Pop ballads, MTV smashes, and vocal-driven rock dominated the charts of the time, but an electric guitar-led album quietly rose to the top and sold over 1 million copies. Nearly unheard of for a non-singing artist. Sadly, Satriani didn't require words. He let the guitar speak for him what his emotions was unable to. Songs like Satch Boogie, Always With Me, Always With You, Circles, and Crushing Day showcased his two-sided playing, which combines icy precision with intense emotion. Furthermore, Satriani didn't pay attention to details merely for their own sake. People felt as though they were living in the music as he told stories through melody. Despite the fact that he doesn't sing, fans began referring to him as the musician who can make you cry. He tried something new by singing on a few tracks for the first time on Flying in a Blue Dream 1989, which marked the beginning of a golden age that lasted for over 10 years. Jazz, fusion, blues, and even pop rock were all incorporated into the album. The album's depth, diversity, and poetic tone were well received. Notable songs were The Forgotten, Big Bad Moon, and Day at the Beach. It was dubbed the artist's most intimate album to date by Guitar World. Many believe that Satriani's 1992 release of The Extremist, an emotional and musical masterwork, solidified his reputation. The song Summer became a staple on American rock radio stations, and Cryin' was an incredibly poignant instrumental ballad. During his first world tour, he performed like a rock star, complete with stage production, lighting, and sound. Nonetheless, he maintained his typical reserved demeanor. There was only music, no trickery or theatrical talk. In 1993, Deep Purple invited him to take Ritchie Blackmore's seat, which was a historic moment. Satriani was rather modest when he replied, yes. He made no effort to mimic Blackmore's voice. Rather, he experimented with his true emotions. Despite the popularity of the tour, Satriani declined to become a full-time member of the band, stating, I'm a songwriter and a storyteller. There needs to be room for my own world. From 1996 until February 2001, Satriani's music evolved and got more diverse. Joe Satriani's 1995 album of the same name has a stronger industrial rock bent. In contrast, the 1998 album Crystal Planet experimented with digital techniques and electronic textures without sacrificing its analog sales. He initiated the G3 Tour, a long-term project with Steve Vai, Eric Johnson, and later John Petrucci, Paul Gilbert, Yngwie Malmsteen, and others, and he quickly gained popularity among young people. G3 wasn't a competition. Together, the musicians created a symphony of emotion, skill, and inventiveness that celebrated the essence of the guitar. February 2008 saw Satriani change bands once more, this time with Red Hot Chili Peppers' Chickenfoot, a supergroup featuring Sammy Hagar, Michael Anthony, previously of Van Halen, and Chad Smith. He wasn't the main solo performer here. Rather, He played large, straightforward riffs that prioritize camaraderie and groove as a team player. Despite not being as well known as Satriani's solo recordings, Chickenfoot and Chickenfoot 3 transformed him from a reserved soloist to a versatile ensemble musician. Satriani has received 15 Grammy nominations, yet he has never once voiced dissatisfaction. A gold statue is not evidence of his value to him. Both the sound of the guitar and the expressions of quiet on the faces of the audience as he enters the stage communicate like a living soul. Joe Satriani's fame wasn't the result of deceit, good fortune, or scandal. He had a distinct artistic philosophy, which is why he did it. He never wavered from who he was. Additionally, he persevered in a field that is constantly evolving. He not only played the guitar, but also performed on it. And the most significant legacy an artist leaves behind is that daily existence. In the scandalous and chaotic world of rock, Joe Satriani is a silent outsider. He has generally avoided the boisterous realm of celebrity culture, skipping out on a few outrageous parties, scandalous soundbites, and tabloid romances. But he doesn't shun people. He does it because ease and seclusion bring him true peace. Satriani wed Rubina, who had supported him from the start when he was a struggling guitar instructor. Although there haven't been any significant events in their long-standing relationship, you can still sense it in his music. Rubina, a song from his debut album, Not of This Earth, is a heartfelt ode to her that uses sincere, gentle notes that evoke the feeling of two souls conversing without words rather than using words or grandiose declarations. In his few interviews discussing his family, Satriani describes himself as a quiet husband, a caring father, and a man in search of tranquility. "I'm bothered by noise." At one point, he said this. After a tour, he desired most to return home, prepare dinner, watch a film with my loved ones, and play the guitar by myself. Despite his international fame, Joe still resides in a modest home in the San Francisco Bay Area rather than a lavish mansion. Sporty vehicles are not permitted. Rather, he uses his money to purchase his own audio equipment and studio. He lectures, paints, or simply sits and observes the rain in his spare time. His life is reflected in the music he creates. It's sufficient to be heard without shouting in order to truly connect. All you need to do is be honest. Satriani keeps his personal life private, much like his music. But if you listen carefully, you can hear the noises of private discussions about faith, love, loneliness, and the dread of losing something. He may be able to communicate his emotions through music, which is a more powerful and accurate language than words. Joe Satriani is not typically considered a rock star. He is the ideal illustration of an artist of a different kind. In his own universe, he was calm, loyal, unflinching, and free. He has always followed the hardest path in music, legacy, and power, and one woman has been his lifelong partner. Joe Satriani didn't need to win a Grammy or be at the top of the charts to make an impact. Quietly, he made a lasting impact on rock history and transformed the lives of millions of people. Medals and statistics don't define his legacy. Every musician who studied under him, and everyone who was moved to quiet after hearing one of his solos have in their hearts. Known as the teacher of legends, Satriani was a direct teacher to some of the most well-known guitarists of the 1980s and 1990s. Steve Vai, Kirk Hammett, Primus, Testament, Alex Skolnick, and Larry Land from Metallica. He didn't merely teach how to play that in his lessons. He taught them how to make stories with music and how to think creatively. All of his students now use these abilities as their signature voices. He launched the G3 Tour in 1996, and it has since grown to be a significant aspect of guitar culture worldwide. Over the years, G3 has brought together some of the world's top guitarists, numerous additional musicians, including Paul Gilbert, Ingrid Malmsteen, John Petrucci, Eric Johnson, and many more. In contrast, Satriani has remained consistent throughout each of them. We choose him because he makes the project come to life, not because he's the best. G3 is not only a performance, it's an intellectual movement. His influence has also been observed by instrument manufacturers. The Ibanez JS series, which Satriani helped create, has become the go-to guitar for musicians looking to strike the ideal mix between technique and emotion. He is renowned for his use of sophisticated pitch harmonics, expressive whammy bar mastery, and fluid legato. Since these techniques are now commonplace in the guitar community, many players still study and attempt to imitate them. However, no album, tour, or hit song may have been Satriani's most significant contribution. Throughout his life, he has been intrigued by the notion that music requires simply truth, not words. Everything seems noisy and extravagant these days, yet he opted for quiet. He simply performed and let the music do the talking while others shouted to garner attention. Satriani's influence extended beyond guitarists. He inspires artists of all stripes to labor quietly in the background, yet with passion and tenacity. Observing him in action demonstrates that the market isn't the only factor that determines success. It can occasionally be the sole means by which an artist's soul can communicate with their audience. And perhaps that legacy will endure without needing to be expressed, much like the instrumental music he has always composed. It will only be felt at this moment. Life with the same fervor he had at the beginning, Joe Satriani continues to write music, play, and inspire others. Not giving up is not a last-ditch effort to become renowned, even though many of his contemporaries have retired or decided to live in the past at this age. This is the speech pattern of a man who is addicted to music. According to Satriani, music is his breath, his form of meditation, and the only path to a true understanding of who he is. In 2022, he set the Elephants of Mars free. It was a large effort that was fully documented during the COVID-19 lockdown. It was his first album on the Ear Music label, following the termination of his long-term contract with Sony. The Elephants of Mars demonstrated his ever-expanding inventiveness by pushing the boundaries of technology, song structure, and soundscapes in addition to his distinctive cinematic instrumental style. The album received positive reviews from both critics and fans, demonstrating Satriani's continued prominence in the music industry, even after 50 years. In 2023 and 2024, he toured Japan, North America, and Europe. Despite the fact that he did not sing, several of the events were sold out. After a few remarks and a respectful bow, he entered the stage with his customary poise, and the music began, transporting the audience to a fantastical place. Satriani has never communicated with his fans verbally. Rather, he conveys unadulterated, universal feelings through sound. By doing workshops, live streaming guitar lessons, and interacting with fans worldwide, he also continues to be active in education and community service. Satriani is not merely a technique instructor. Younger musicians look up to him as well. He accomplishes this through his playing and by leading a focused, considerate, and truthful life in his area of work. He lives in California with his family and enjoys cooking, painting, and spending time in the backyard with his small dog when he's not creating music. As long as my hands can move, I'll keep playing. I will still hear the music in my head when I can't. Joe Satriani isn't all that different now, as he was 30 years ago when he was asked about his retirement plans in an interview in 2024. He simply smiled, remains the reserved individual who enters the stage and plays notes without explaining why. He continues to compose his greatest solo, which has never ceased to play. Joe Satriani's living proof of a truth is not something that many people are ready to wait to see. It is not necessary to hear loud sounds to understand. Everyone will stop talking if you are just honest. In a profession that frequently rewards loudmouths and attention seekers, he chose to walk slowly, speak little, and lead a quiet life. No large statement could have had the same effect as this. Joe Satriani is still going strong. The most well-known instrumental solo musician of our time, he founded G3, mentored luminaries, and began playing the guitar as a teenager on the day Jimi Hendrix passed away. He rejected prominent offers, steered clear of media controversy, and steadfastly adhered to his straightforward beliefs. It's not enough to perform music for show. The purpose of music is to be experienced. His voyage might be the longest, most bizarre, and most exquisite instrumental composition ever composed. Not every note is merely a sound. It is a part of his spirit. Even if the guitarist's hands stop moving, the composition will still have an impact on listeners. Has your heart ever stopped beating because of any of Satriani's note tree melodies? Could you tell me what you learned from it? Please click like and subscribe to join us as we continue to explore the lives of music icons. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the upcoming video. I appreciate you coming.